Lando Norris feels the pressure, as Oscar Piastri has outqualified him 12 times in 22 races, shifting McLaren's balance of power and igniting public warnings that a teammate could make his life hell. With Piastri's average starting position now 1.5 grid slots ahead, and the team's performance gap to rivals widening, McLaren faces a volatile internal rivalry, just as Formula One's 2026 rule reset threatens to upend everything. Who will lead this civil war into the sport's next era? 12 out of 22. That's how often Oscar Piastri has outqualified Lando Norris in the past season. A statistic that cuts through any talk of rookie deference or team hierarchy. The raw numbers tell the story. Piastri's average grid slot sits at 7.8, a full 1.5 places ahead of Norris's 9.3. This is not a handful of lucky Saturdays or weather-affected anomalies. It is a sustained pattern across circuits, climates, and car evolutions. From the tight walls of Monaco to the long straights at Spa, Piastri has repeatedly started ahead, forcing Norris to play catch-up before the lights even go out. For a team that once relied on Norris as its qualifying benchmark, the shift is impossible to ignore. Each weekend, the timing sheets deliver the same message. Piastri's name above Norris's, the margin sometimes 1/10 of a second, sometimes half a second, but always enough to turn heads inside the McLaren garage. Over the full campaign, these grid positions have set the tone for race strategy, pit calls, and even the politics behind closed doors. The pressure compounds with every session. Norris, the reigning champion, now faces a teammate who does not just match his pace, but increasingly sets the reference for the entire team. The psychological toll is mounting. Every qualifying defeat chips away at the old order, raising the stakes for each lap, each setup choice, each radio call. As the numbers stack up, one question refuses to fade. How much longer can Norris hold on to his status as McLaren's lead driver when the evidence on paper keeps tilting toward Piastri? Brake bias logs from Bahrain show Piastri shifting his settings forward by 2% after only 3 laps, holding the pedal deep into the zone where most would already be modulating throttle. The result is a gain of up to 7 hundredths through heavy stop corners, barely visible from the grandstands, but enough to redraw the order on a timing sheet. In telemetry, the spike appears as a sharp drop in deceleration, a line Norris has struggled to match without risking rear lockup. On the straights, Piastri's DERS activation flashes 90 km per hour earlier than Norris's, extending the top speed window and banking another 3 hundredths into the next braking zone. Engineers tracking the overlays at Spa and Monza watched Piastri's rear wing snap open before Norris had even straightened the wheel. Across a full lap, these margins accumulate. Half a tenth here, 6 hundredths at the apex. A relentless pressure that forces Norris to drive outside his comfort zone. The difference is even sharper in medium-speed corners. Piastri migrates the apex later, using the new suspension geometry to carry velocity deeper into the turn. Each time he does, the gain registers as a 6 hundredths advantage, small in isolation, but devastating when multiplied over a race distance. Norris, once the undisputed reference for McLaren's technical feedback, now faces a teammate whose signature techniques rewrite the limits of the car. Every lap, the psychological squeeze tightens. The stopwatch is no longer an ally, but a threat. The question is no longer whether Piastri can match Norris, but how much further he can push. Sector by sector, the deficit is undeniable. Across the 2025 calendar, McLaren's average lap time loss to Ferrari and Mercedes hovers at 0.2 of a second, a gap that refuses to shrink, no matter the circuit. Timing sheets from Bahrain, Spa, and Silverstone reveal a pattern. The bleeding is most severe in Sector 2, where high downforce demands expose the limits of McLaren's aero package. In Bahrain, the stopwatch reads a 0.12 second lag through the middle sector alone. At Spa, that number jumps to 0.13 seconds. Engineers trace the problem to a drag to downforce ratio of 0.036 kilograms per newton, just enough inefficiency to cost precious tenths on every lap. especially when rivals are running closer to 0.033. Degradation compounds the pain. Pirelli's wear data shows McLaren's medium compound losing 0.12 seconds per lap after the 15th tour, compared to 0.09 for Ferrari. The culprit is rear wheel load from the current suspension geometry, forcing earlier pit stops and robbing drivers of late race pace. On the straights, the Renault-derived hybrid unit falls short, delivering 0.8% less peak torque than the Mercedes power units powering the competition. The delta is small, 7 kilowatts on paper, but over a Grand Prix distance, it translates to lost ground that cannot be recovered in the corners. Performance engineers pore over overlays, searching for answers. Every lap, the numbers stack up: a tenth lost to drag, another to tire fade, a handful of hundredths to power deficit. The urgency is palpable on the pit wall. With each race, the gap to the front grows more stubborn. Unless the underlying causes are addressed, McLaren's title ambitions remain stuck in the realm of simulation. The real-world stopwatch demands more. Who inside Woking will find the solution before the deficit becomes permanent? McLaren's push to close the gap on Ferrari and Mercedes has run straight into the limits of its own resources. The departure of chief aerodynamicist James Galloway in June 2024 left a vacuum that rippled through the technical department. Galloway's exit wasn't an isolated event, and by the end of 2025, 4 more senior aero staff had walked out, taking with them years of intellectual property and continuity. The team's wind tunnel, once a cornerstone of rapid development, now operates at just 84% of its permitted capacity under the cost cap. Each percentage cut means fewer model runs, fewer iterations, and longer wait times for upgrades to reach the track. Budget constraints bite deeper with every season. In 2023, McLaren funneled 96% of its cap into development. By 2025, that figure had dropped to 84%. The difference isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It is the reason why the new rear wing concept, designed to claw back lost downforce in Sector 2, arrived 3 races late and under-delivered on CFD promises. Engineers who once had the freedom to chase marginal gains now face hard choices. They must prioritize reliability fixes for the Renault-derived hybrid unit, or gamble on a new floor edge for the next rules cycle. There is no room for both. Triage has become the only option for team principal Andrea Stella. The loss of Galloway's leadership, combined with a shrinking aero team, means McLaren's development pipeline is thinner than at any point since 2021. Wind tunnel cutbacks slow the feedback loop between concept and reality. Every delay hands Ferrari and Mercedes another week at the front. This erosion of staff and budget is more than a technical headache. It is a warning that unless McLaren finds a new way forward, the 2026 reset may be their last shot to regain control of their own destiny. Formula One's 2026 regulations promise to redraw every line of competition. The front wing, once a layered masterpiece of airflow manipulation, will shrink to a single simplified element, with no hidden flaps and no vortex generators, just one broad surface to channel the air. Underneath, the floor becomes the main battleground, a full-length ground effect design that is tightly prescribed, and that demands new expertise in managing airflow beneath the car. Power units face a revolution of their own. The hybrid system's electrical boost will climb to a maximum of 30 megajoules per lap, double the current limit, forcing teams to rethink energy deployment, cooling, and battery mapping from scratch. On the sporting side, qualifying gets a shakeup. 2 group stages replace the old 3-segment format, compressing pressure into 15-minute bursts. Each change strips away familiar advantages and hands every team, including McLaren, a blank sheet. The question is simple: who adapts first and who gets left behind? McLaren's technical overhaul began with a targeted raid on Red Bull's aerodynamics department, bringing in 3 senior engineers to head a new 2026 Aero Task Force. The mandate was to deliver a low-drag floor that can unlock the full potential of the new ground effect rules. In simulation, the stakes are brutal. A single misstep in adaptation costs as much as 200 points over a season, the difference between a title fight and a slide to fourth. Monte Carlo projections run 10,000 championship scenarios. In the best case, McLaren's floor expertise translates into a 620-point haul, leapfrogging Ferrari and Mercedes. In the worst case, a delayed concept leaves them 110 points adrift. History offers a warning. The Senna-Prost and Alonso Hamilton eras both ended with fractured teams, despite world-class machinery. Every strategic call, every upgrade, now carries echoes of those internal wars. With both drivers awaiting a signal from the pit wall, the team's future hangs on a knife edge. Success demands unity, but the numbers show just how fast rivalry can turn hope into heartbreak. Right now, McLaren's fate hinges on a volatile balance: technical progress versus psychological warfare. The 2026 rules demand unity, yet the fight for supremacy only intensifies. The question isn't who has the pace, but who defines the team. Into Formula One's new era, leadership remains McLaren's greatest uncertainty. What's your call?